Hello. I'm really sorry for the lateness of scheduling this. I wasn't sure I was going to do one today. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel after I was done work. And please excuse Sasha hanging out with me right now. Uh, I've been teaching all day, and she's not been allowed in the room. So at 2:30 when I finish my last class, I always let her in. This one's going to be short and sweet, mostly because my light's been on most of the day, and it's battery operated, so it's been really cranky. I won NaNoWriMo. The point of NaNoWriMo is to hit 50,000 words. In general, you want to start a brand new novel, but I almost never follow that. I started Fool Me Twice last month, October 1st, and it was a little bit slow going for lots of reasons. One, I started a new job, which really, really limited how much I could write during October. And so when I went into this month, I think I had, I said I'd had around 55,000 words already, or maybe 45,000 words. I'm not exactly sure exactly where I started. Hopefully the microphone I'm using today is improving my sound quality. I don't know. It's new, and I haven't listened to myself back on it yet. I've only been using it in my Zoom meetings. So I started it with I had about 7 chapters already written, and I had about 45,000 words. November was a lot. The first week, the election kind of messed me up. And then my nieces got quarantined. My sister got exposed, and then I got put on quarantine, and we got switched to remote learning. So I was really starting to doubt whether or not I was going to hit any goal in November, much less my hit 50K and finish the draft. I am not going to be finishing the draft, and I'm okay with that. I wrote as of today, I've written 52,000 words. I wrote 10 chapters in the last 23 days, which I'm actually pretty happy about. 3 of them were in the first few days, and then 3 of them were the last 3 days. And then 4 were scattered across all of, November. So the reason why I'm really excited about winning November NaNoWriMo is I have never, ever won a November NaNoWriMo with a draft that is going to be read by the public or that I haven't immediately thrown out. So I've been doing NaNoWriMo off and on since 2014. The first year I did write part of a nonfiction novel that's on my Patreon somewhere. I'm sorry, the cat is still wagging her butt in front of my light. And then the last 2 or 3 years, I've written 50K, but I've never actually given you guys anything to read from that. So last year was the closest I ever came. I wrote 50K for Broken Girl, but I ended up tossing almost all of that. Very little, if any, of that first draft made it. What is really great is every single inch of what I've written is probably going to be in some shape or form. It's going to be edited and revised, but I am not rewriting and throwing it out at all. It is the draft you're going to get. I'm very excited about that. I'm also halfway through it, and I'm also really excited about that as well. And I think that I'm past the most of the stress that I'm going to go through for the pandemic, in the sense that I have just survived my first exposure. Today is the last day of my quarantine. I tested negative. We're all good. My cat has got hair all over everything. So, excuse me. So that's good. My nieces and my sister both came out of quarantine, and I am back on remote teaching. And the great thing about remote teaching is it lets me, at the moment, I am allowed to teach from home. As long as none of my coworkers mess up and do anything they're not supposed to do, our union has argued for us to have that option. And I prefer this option because it means I can limit who I spend my time with. And that's number one cause of all of my anxiety for the last 6 months, is not being able to limit who I spend my time with. That's why I was able to kind of get through the last kind of remote teaching, why I was able to get through the summer, because I was really only seeing my parents and my sister and my nieces and my nephews and my brother. I was just seeing immediate family. I really limited who I saw, and I could not do that as long as I was leaving my house every day, going to work, sometimes stopping for breakfast, because it's just the way the world works. You don't always have time in the morning. Being with all the students, being with all my fellow teachers, as great as it was to be back in the classroom, and it was, I could not limit. I was seeing 50 to 60 to 70 people a day, and that was really stressing me out. Now I can stay on quarantine, and after Thanksgiving, I intend to, as long as I don't have to report to the school, I'm not going to. I'm going to remote teach at home. I'm going to stay in my little bubble, and I'm going to protect myself, because the vaccine is coming, and Melissa over here has asthma and other breathing problems, so I'm not in the mood to kind of with the light and then in the tunnel, I'm not in the mood to kind of mess it up now. And it's spreading in my school. There's a couple of teachers who came down with it. More more students have been testing positive. So we went out at the right time. So I'm just, Camden County, where I live, has spiked. We have 1,100 cases over the last 3 days. That's crazy sauce. So that out of the way, I wanted to give you guys an update on how the actual novel is going. And this is also for my Patreons who always get like an in-depth weed. In the weeds, if you are a Patreon at the $7 or $10 level, you're actually getting weekly updates. I think with my next novel, we're going to switch that where the $7 Patreons get the weekly updates, and then the $10 Patreons are going to get I finish a chapter, you get the chapter. So you're basically going to get my beta, because Ange gets the chapters when I read them. So I can get like a level. Anyway, I'm going to be revising my Patreon things going into 2020. But the novel itself is going really well. Like there's the kind of... there are the issues that are existing because I am writing it so spaced out. Generally, when I am at this point in the story, I have hit the point where I am writing every single day. And so the pieces of the scenes meld a little bit together. The details kind of match a little bit more smoothly. But I have been writing the last 17 chapters over the last 7 weeks. So there have been spacing out. There have been like a whole week before I wrote the next chapter. So sometimes the details are not as crisp as I would like. And I do not go back generally and reread. Now, I have decided to kind of go back and reread a little bit just so I can see if I can limit the amount of time I'm going to spend in revision. So I spent last night and I read the first 3 chapters, which I had not looked at since the first week of October. And I was pleasantly surprised that I think I'm going to add stuff to it, but I'm not mad at anything I wrote, which is always good. Because sometimes when you go back to those first chapters, you're like, this is trash. So let's talk about where I am in the story. So if you have forgotten it all, Fool Me Twice is the rewrite of the Jason Return. And it is me actually taking the beats that General Hospital went with. I have made Franco's identity and his connection to Drew part of the story. I have made Sam's behavior where she initially chose Drew and went through with the divorce and was asking Jason for custody of Danny. I have chosen to use all of that. So we are going with that part of the storyline. I'm using Andre. I'm using kind of everything that the show did. I am doing, only I don't want to say better. I'm going to do it with my emphasis. So Elizabeth is a bigger part of the story, which she should have been. I didn't mean to break up Elizabeth and Franco as soon as I did, but then I did. So they're already they're done in chapter 4. And I cannot write Elizabeth and Franco as a couple. I just can't, because it doesn't fit with my idea of who Elizabeth is. So I'll be honest, it's unlikely you're ever going to get anything where I'm Elizabeth, by chapter 17, Elizabeth, I don't even understand how that happened. I'm girl, none of us can either. I'm also I'm making Oscar still part of it, but I've changed who Oscar is. Oscar is going to know Drew in the sense that he's going to have been raised with Drew. Kim is going to have been Drew's wife, but Kim is not Oscar's biological mother. So I've changed that to because I think it's a lot more interesting if Drew is literally Oscar's father and Oscar knows him. I think that if there's a connection with, I never understood why they decided to make Kim and Oscar these people that Drew didn't know, because then it's not a big deal that he doesn't remember them because he didn't know them. And so we've never found anybody from Drew's life that had a connection to him that made him want to get his memories. And I think it's more interesting when you have something that pulls Drew to get his memories. And so we have Oscar and we have Kim, and we also have Drew's first wife, Oscar's mother, who died. And so I've changed their background a little bit. And I'm also playing more with Sonny, Carly, Ava, and the AJ stuff with Monica and Michael. I'm reopening all of that. So I am using all of the beats that General Hospital did, but I am making them better. So where I am in the story right now is we're about 5 or 6 chapters out of Jason and Drew getting the identities sorted. So the first 5 chapters are leading up to Jason's reveal at the Metro Court. And then the next 7 chapters are just kind of Drew running around saying, I am definitely Jason, and Jason saying, but I am, and people choosing sides. And then we have the end of the first act, which is, you are who you are supposed to be. And then I just hit my midpoint, which is Jason and Drew are deciding to work together because they have found out that Jake was part of the experiment. And I think that makes sense to me, to make him part of the experiment because of what they did with the Chimera, or the Chimera during 2017. They had Helena come back, she wasn't back from the dead. She kind of gave Jake suggestions that he should blow people up with this poisonous gas that was the Chimera. And that story kind of fizzled out. This was my way of bringing it back, that was part of Helena's overall plan, and so the experiments all played into it. General Hospital did a lot of things that never made any sense with the twin story. There was no point for Franco to be part of it, but sure, let's make him part of it. And if we're gonna make a part of it, well, let's explain how Victor even knew they were twins. Let's try and figure out how we can make that work for us. That's been the hardest thing for the story, is trying to make sense of general, because Peter August does not exist in my story, because Peter August should not exist in anybody's story ever in the history of the world. Like, he should just not exist. And it never made sense for Faison to be the bad guy and Peter to be the bad guys. Like, no, make it the Cassidines. Let's make Valentine, you know, it's hashtag 2020, make the Cassidines evil again. Like, Valentine's going to be the bad guy. So, like, I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. You're going to know that in chapter 1. Like, Valentine is the ultimate bad guy. I haven't decided what to do with Nicholas yet. Like, is he going to stay dead? Is he going to come back? I haven't figured that part out yet. But I am just at chapter 17 where, you know, Jason and Drew have figured out that they're going to work together to get to the end of it, because they want to make sure that Jake is no longer in, you know, Jake's no longer in danger. And then I'm going to have Andre kind of be more mysterious. Like, he does not play all of his cards right away. Like, he's going to hold stuff back because he's going to want a deal to make sure. So the draft is going really well. So that's kind of like, I'm really glad I did a lot of discovery with this. I sat down, I really planned out every single chapter, every single scene. I have changed stuff as I went, but it was great because I think I work really well with a plan, because I'll change the plan as I go. And I really have, like, there's a couple of things that are not going the way I had thought they would. And I'm happy with that because it's really made the story really more interesting. But I am happy that I had a plan going forward because I felt prepared going into every chapter. Now, every chapter I have to stop and tweak the scenes a little bit and change them. And I do that for like the first 10 minutes before I start writing. But I don't mind doing that because it makes me feel more prepared. And when I take a couple of days between, you know, chapters, I'm not that mad about it because I'm not trying to remember where I was, because I'm not pantsing it. I'm not just going in as I go. Because I have a plan, I can leave off and take a couple of days and come back, and the plan still feels kind of like in my head. So I am really happy. I am always going to shoot for a discovery process like Fool Me Twice, where I have the entire story planned, and then I have the story down to the scenes, and then I have the entire story chapter broken down with songs and everything, because that put me into a really good space to, even though I'm not going to finish by next week, if I continue writing at the pace I've been writing, and with Thanksgiving break coming up, I don't see a reason why I shouldn't. I'll be at chapter 24 on November 30th, which means if I continue writing at that complete pace, I will actually finish only about a week and a half outside of my due date, my deadline. And I'm like, I'm not mad about it. If I finish this draft by December 15th, I'm going to be ecstatic, because that means I don't necessarily have to miss my February, dates. It means my revision schedule gets a little bit more cramped. But as I always said, I didn't think that the revision schedule on this story was going to be that bad because of how well I had planned it. I see me adding stuff. I don't know that we're going to need like 3 or 4. Like, it doesn't feel as messy as Mad World does. It doesn't feel as messy as Broken Girl. And Broken Girl's revisions took longer because A, it was the first time I'd ever done revisions like that. So I didn't really know what I was doing. And B, it was the pandemic had just started. Like, I was just like, I was like, I've been living with it a lot longer now. So for a lot of reasons, like, I think the post-production on this is going to be great. I am looking forward to in December. So now that we're coming up to it, let me preview a little bit of, because like this is the week where I sit down and I think about my site and story status update. Like, here is the state of things. And we're going into the end of the year. So I'm also thinking about my end of the year one, and we're going into the holidays. And generally I try to write something for the holidays. So I've got a lot of things like on my plate, and I'm trying to like juggle them all. And also Flash Fiction, like Flash Fiction's a freaking mess. I got to think about what to do with that. So let's preview a little bit. If you're still here watching, let's preview what my, December is going to look like. We're finishing the draft. I'm tentatively going to say by December 15th, because I have I finished chapter 17 yesterday. That means let me see how math works. I have 15 chapters left. It is November 24th. If I give myself 3 weeks to write 15 chapters, that actually gives me some space and I'll be able to kind of hurry stuff up. I also want to kind of reset with Flash Fiction. I want to take a look at the 4 I have in progress and maybe just focus on 2 and like get back to that. But they're kind of off the radar a little bit just because it's more important for Fool Me Twice to be done. So those are the 2 things I'm thinking about. When I finish this draft, I'm going to take a week away from it so that I can let it sit. And then I'm going to go back to Mad World Book 4, which I almost forgot I was writing because my life has been so crazy in November. And I want to nail down the beta draft because I want to figure out how long it's going to take and how much writing I have to do. And I'm going to like try and figure out my schedule. I'm really hoping that I don't get pushed off too far of my plans. Like, if I can still make that February date for Fool Me Twice, I think I can still make the other dates for the rest of the year. 2020 was crazy in a lot of ways in my life, in the world, and not in a lot of ways, and like always. But in my writing, it's actually been pretty good. I have written 2.5 novels in 1 year. Like, that's a career best for me. And I also wrote all of that flash fiction, and I wrote some short stories. Like, it's not been too bad, right? So I'm like pretty happy about that. And like setting goals for next year, I think the idea that I'm going to write 3 books every single year is a thought. Like, I'm not sure that's actually possible, but maybe it's not. I mean, I actually, believe it or not, I actually wrote 3.5 novels, because Mad World has book 4 is actually drafted. It just needs to be revised and like heavily rewritten. But like, I actually did it. Like, I actually wrote like the equivalent of 2 books when I wrote that draft of Mad World. You guys only got the first half of what I wrote. So I wrote a ton this summer, and I could always do that. Like, I can write that again this summer. Like, I can do the same thing. So it's not necessarily out of the more I write, the more I learn about my process. So like, I think I can still meet a lot of my goals in 2021. So it's like, I'm sitting down and I'm really thinking about my process, and like, what was Fool Me Twice? Like, what was holding me up story-wise, and what was holding me up because of real world. And I can't always assume the real world is going to be good, and I can't always assume it's going to be crazy. It's usually more of a mix. And if I can kind of figure out how to work for the mix, I'm good to go. I still very much want to take on Broken Girl book 2 after I'm finished the beta draft for Mad World book 4, but I'm just structuring. I'm not writing book 4. I really do want to finish book 2 while book 1 is still in my head. I want to get that duology out and ready to go. I do want to finish that. I think you guys really responded really well to Broken Girl, and I want to see where that story goes. I'm really excited to write the second half, because the second half is actually a story I had envisioned 5 years ago. I'm really excited to finish Fool Me Twice. As I've been talking to Ange as we go along, I've been talking about how different it feels and how I had to adjust for just how this story is different from, like, not that there's not emotional stuff in there. And in fact, some of the stuff I've written the last couple of chapters have been the most emotional stuff I've written for the story. But it's also a lot of moving pieces, a lot of storylines, a lot of characters in a way that Mad World wasn't. It's way more plot than it is character. Like, things are happening, and we're not just sitting around and waiting for them. So Mad World, yeah, that's you. Mad World felt like we were sitting around waiting a lot of the times. We were waiting for the hearing. We were waiting for medical news. And a lot of the characters are just reacting to things a lot, which is great. And I think that worked for that type of story. But in Fool Me Twice is things are happening in every chapter. At least I hope they are. And the characters are just trying to keep up. Like, in some ways, I don't know if I'm giving space for the characters to really deal with it. I don't know. When I go through revisions, I'm going to go back and reread Drew and Sam, because I'm not sure how well they're coming across. And a lot of that isn't entirely my fault in some ways, because I am trying to rewrite a story that existed on the show. And the show, like, bombed this story so bad. Like, they never gave us the triangle. So, and honestly, and I think we can all, like, I think I'm among friends where I say, like, Sam as a character is a complete fail. She doesn't actually have a character. So it's always a real difficulty writing her, because she now doesn't make sense from day to day to day. Like, I have to kind of figure out who she's supposed to be. And that's really hard for me. It's one of the reasons I don't write her a whole lot, because I don't know who she is. And if I can't connect to you as a character, like, I can write Courtney, I can write Carly, I can write these other characters. Sam is just like, she's a cipher. And I think that maybe that's who she is. She's never the same person twice, because she doesn't actually have an identity. She's always wrapped up in whoever she's with at the time. So I think maybe we need to investigate, who does she go to, and why is she staying with Drew and not Jason? If, like, why is she picking this identity over that identity? What about the identity she has with Drew feels safer than the identity she had with Jason? Because Sam isn't a person. She's just a collection of identities. And every time she moves a relationship, she picks up a new identity. So I guess it's more of investigating, like, what makes her stick with this over that. And does she just get bored and move on? And is that why she ultimately breaks up with Drew on the show? Because she is going to break up with Drew in Fool Me Twice. Like, the Drew-Sam relationship is not going to last. But my problem with the show is like, I don't care that Sam stayed with Drew and then broke up with Drew to go back with Jason. I care that Jason sat around and waited. So in Fool Me Twice, Jason's not sitting around and waiting. Like, he's going back and rebuilding his own life. And because Elizabeth and Franco are broken up, like, there she is. Because I'm a Jason and Elizabeth fan, and that's just how we roll. So I think that that's going to make it more interesting, is that when Sam finally decides that she has made the wrong choice and she wants to go and stay with Jason, Jason's not there anymore. And then we investigate, like, is Jason really, is he settling for Elizabeth because Sam isn't available? Or is, like, Jason had finally, like, gotten to a point in his life where he's like, I don't need what I think I need. Like, he's just like ready to move on to the next stage, and Elizabeth is more matched for that stage. Like, I think that that's what I'm going to be doing in book 2 and book 3. Book 1 is just like organizing all the pieces because, yeah, it's a trilogy. You know, I don't know how to write anything else these days. All right, so it's been about 20 minutes. I got a couple of you guys like here, which is cool. Does anybody have any questions or like anything they want to say? I mean, other than Anne just saying congratulations and like whatnot. Like, thank you, by the way. Like, and thank you for being there every time I send you. I'm like, I just text you like, hey, I finished a chapter. Here you go. You're very, very supportive that way. So if anybody has anything they want to like add or ask, I don't know when and if Flash Fiction's coming back this week. I'm really focused on finishing November strong. I really want to hit November 24th, November 30th with chapter 24. I really feel like that's probably the best use of my time. But I'm also off for 4 days, and the election is not happening this time with me being off for 4 days, which it was the first time I was off. So maybe I'll have more time to think about Flash Fiction. So there's that. If nobody has any questions, thank you guys for watching. There's like 4 of you in here. That's pretty cool. Pretty excited by that. I will try and live stream more often to the public. I just don't, because this is what happens is I get the urge and I go online with 20 minutes like news. So, all right, it is 3:20 here. I'm going to go walk away from my computer because I've been on my computer since 7 this morning teaching. And I'm going to start writing at 4. And I'm going to write the 4 to 6. So hopefully I'll get another chapter done. All right, bye.